Thanks, guys. Thanks for coming along tonight. Um, as I'm going to talk a little about how to help create more effective spells tonight. And I thought just before I get into the topic itself, in my first Facebook Live, I talked a little about my background and how I kind of, started finding more about the psychic side of myself, because we were doing a more psychic topic. So I thought I'd just touch on a little bit in how I kind of came to find the path of witchcraft, just briefly before I kind of dive into this topic. Um, I find it's a little bit of a funny path, I suppose, or a bit ironic. That for me, I was actually brought up Catholic. I went to Catholic schools. We were brought up very strict Catholic. We went to church every Sunday, um, and I had very strict Catholic grandparents. So it was my mum's side was very Catholic. And it was actually at a Catholic school library that I found my very first book on witchcraft. Because I was such a little library body, I would go to the library most lunch breaks and spend my time there. And at the time that I found this book on witchcraft, I actually felt like there was something missing. So I was actually spending my time between going to church because they were telling me, I was being told, that thing that was missing was Jesus, and also spending my time in the library. And I happened upon this big, thick book that was all about the witches' Sabbaths. And it had beautiful images in it, and I remember I just found the whole book was just enthralling. Like I couldn't stop reading it, and it just spoke to me on so many levels. And I felt like from reading this book, I felt like I'd found, what it was. It felt like didn't feel like I was searching anymore, aside from the fact I needed to know more about, what this book was talking about. So for me, that was kind of like that starting point. And I was actually 13 when I found that book, and I returned that book to the library. And a few days later, I was like, I really need to go find that book again and borrow it again. But it never reappeared back on the shelf at the school library. So I always joke, I don't know if the librarians actually burnt the book after they saw it returned and were like, what's this doing here? I don't know what happened to it. But certainly it was that book that put me on my path of witchcraft, which was over 25 years ago now, and starting to kind of explore all of those concepts that we talk about these days, spells and ritual and working with deity, and Sabbaths, or our celebrations. It was getting on the path of witchcraft that actually originally got me starting to meditate as well, because the books that were available back then, which I can't say that there was heaps, but the handful you could get your hands on back then, um, all were very traditional witchcraft and talked about, that you had to study for a year and a day and that you had to meditate every day, and you start a book of shadows or a journal and you were writing everything down. And I was already a big journaler back then, so that was kind of an easy part to adopt. But it really got me really exploring that side of things. So I have been doing spells and doing all that kind of work for over 25 years now. And I call myself a white witch, especially these days. And while I'm not big on labels, and I talk about that a little bit in the workshops that I run in connection with witchcraft, um, personally, I found that one way to kind of, I suppose, get my mum in particular to be accepting, and especially my grandparents to be accepting of this path I was following, was to actually use that label of white witch. And so when I started doing that, and I can't say it was immediate because it took me a long time, like probably many of you, to come out of the broom closet, so to speak. Um, but I found that using that label and talking about things in that way seemed to be helpful and put people more at peace about what I was doing. And because, it's white witchcraft that I do, that's my focus. It's very much on white and on the light and on bringing healing and helping and all those sorts of things. It's just a title I have tended to adopt. But Like I say, certainly you don't have to have a label. We can just call ourselves a witch. So, having said all of that, we'll kind of dive a little bit into our topic tonight on more effective spells. And you may be expecting me to start talking about different tools to incorporate, maybe some herbs like your couples and things like that that can assist and boost spells and do things like that. But that's not the direction that I'm going at all tonight. In fact, um, there are other things without having to worry about what tools that you're using that we really need to think about and consider, and that have a big impact on the spells that we do and can really help to give us or help us to create more effective spells and more effective manifesting that we're doing. So even if you're not doing a spell per se, these sorts of things will help with the manifesting that you're doing. So please know that you are your most powerful tool. And that's why I'm not going to focus on herbs and things like that, because they're tools that we use as part of spell work. But please know that you are, in fact, your most powerful tool. And so you can actually do really powerful spells and manifesting without all the other fancy tools, without the right candles and herbs and crystals and, all of those things. You can actually do really powerful manifesting for yourself. But the thing is that we often feel that we need those extra things, those extra tools and the right things to have around us and to utilize to do effective spells. But it's actually us, and it's us that really puts the fuel in the fire, so to speak, for any of the spells and manifesting that we're doing. So please know that. So I want to go into what are the things that we have in our power as our powerful tool. What are those things that we can actually do to help create effective spells? So one of the first things I want to mention is it's really good idea to create a sacred space that you can keep working in every time you do your spell work or every time you're trying to do manifesting. It's a great spot to do your meditation as well, which is another thing that I do encourage. So create a sacred space. So you might have an altar that you're using, and that's where you do all your spell work. That is set up in one particular room, in one particular area, and that's where it's always done, which is ideal. Not everybody has that to be able to do. Not everybody can, have an altar that's set up permanently. So even if you can't have that, try and decide where is appropriate that you can consistently do your spell work and maybe even be able to sit and do your meditation, or at least some of your meditation as well. Now, one of the reasons that I suggest this is because when we continuously do this type of work, this work will raise the vibration in that space, and it will actually make it easier to, one, connect in with that higher vibrational energy. So it'll make it easier to do meditation in future because you can kind of slip into that vibration a lot easier. You're building up the energy in that space. And two, because we're building up the energy, it will help to add more energy to our spell work. So it's a higher vibration that will add that positive energy to the spell work that we're doing. So definitely, if we can keep working consistently in that same space, that will be most ideal. So even if that's your dining table, that's fine. If that's what you've got that you can keep using, that's fine. But try and do it consistently in that same space. Now, like I said, do your meditation as well in that same space. And I would encourage you to do regular meditation if you want to do really effective spells. And the reason for this, among the many benefits of meditation, meditation really helps us to build focus. And focus is one of those things that we really want to have when it comes to doing spells. If we are in the midst of focusing on the intent of whatever our spell is, and in the middle of that we start thinking about what I'm going to make for tea later, or, oh, I forgot to do this thing, or, we just get distracted as we go, then that is not going to contribute to positive effects with our spell. It's actually going to detract. So if we can have a really good focus and be able to hold our focus on the spell work we're doing and what we need to be focused on, that really assists us in having more powerful spells and more effective spells. So meditation can really help with that. So it can help to really build our focus, help us to hold a really good focus. So that's one of the reasons why I encourage meditation. I mean, it's really good for stress relief. It's really good to get us in a great space and to raise our own vibration, which is also of benefit to us as well when it comes to doing spell work. So I know it kind of works on multiple levels. Um, Focusing on one spell at a time is also a really big tip that I would give you as well. So when we kind of do multiple spells and we do them in quick succession, you don't tend to get very effective spells that come out of that. So I certainly don't encourage people to, do multiple spells in the same night, um, or, do one after the other sort of thing. I would more encourage you to choose what's the spell that is your priority right now, and then make that your focus and do your spell work for that and put the energy into that, kind of commit to that. And there might be a few other things that are going on for you, but maybe have a look, is there an underlying theme? So there might be a particular focus of a spell that you could work with, which will actually help on multiple levels in your life. So it doesn't just have to be, I'm focusing on solving this problem. It might be, oh, look, if I look at all of these things, the underlying issue might be perhaps I need some more self-confidence. So it'd be perhaps a better idea to look at doing something for self-confidence rather than focusing on solving a particular problem. So try and look at it that way if you're really concerned and you feel like you need to be doing more than one spell at a time, to be able to prioritize and look at what is the spell that I should be doing right now. So certainly focusing on one spell at a time will really help, because you'll put your everything into that one spell instead. And so then we want to have a really clear focus when it comes to our spells. Having a really clear focus will really help your spell. It'll help universe to really understand what it is that you're asking for, what you're putting out into the universe. And when I say have a clear focus, it's have a clear focus that you really feel strongly about. So you want to have an emotional attachment to that intent that you're asking for, because I really and truly can't stress enough to you guys that emotion is what really puts energy behind your spells and behind your manifesting. So this is where I like to talk about subjects like money, because we tend to do a lot of money spells. People usually, we can all use a little bit more money to flow in. But when it comes to things like money or abundance, I highly recommend what will help to fuel and get that emotional side of things really working for you, and your spells will be more effective, is to actually think about, if all this money fell into your lap, if all this money came, what would you use that money for? And actually use that as more of your focus, rather than just, it'd be nice to have money. It'd be nice to have $1 million. We don't have as big a emotional attachment to it. It'd be nice to have $1 million. We might really want it, but if you think about that holiday that you're really craving to have, that would cost X amount of money, that's what's going to have more of an emotional connection for you than just, it'd be nice to have $1 million. I could think of lots of things I could do with $1 million, but you don't necessarily have that same emotional connection and emotional commitment to that. So think about, that focus that's really going to fire you up, that's going to really make you really passionate and want to do. So then the other side that I like to mention in regard to this as well is I get asked by people to please do spells for them. And I always try and empower people to do their own spells because of that emotional connection. So for me, I might want something for my friend or for that person. I might be like, oh, yes, I'd really like that for them. But I'm not going to be nearly as emotionally connected to whatever it is that they're wanting and they're needing as what they are going to be. So they're going to actually, probably fuel a better spell because of that emotional connection that they have, where it's like, oh, it'd be really nice, I'd love to be able to help them, versus they really want this thing, they'd really like whatever it is. So it's often good to even guide people through how to do a spell and empower them in that way to be able to do spells for themselves because of that as well. So know that, we really need that emotional connection. When I charge up things for my spells, I often talk about you want to really feel that. What does it feel like to have that thing? What does it look like? So visualizing, what does it look like? Not the stepping stones to getting to it, but actually the end result. What does it look like? How happy is that going to make me? Can I see myself happy? Is my life improved by having whatever it is? See that end result. What does it look like? How do I look? How do I feel? And affirming all of those aspects. And I even like to often write like a short affirmation in regards to my focus so that I can even affirm it, so that when we're doing the spell, and you can kind of scroll through, you can focus on visualizing it for a good minute or couple of minutes, and then feeling, what does it feel like if I absolutely had this? What would it feel like? And then using an affirmation. I don't like to have them too long. I know, there's wonderful affirmations out there like Louise Hay and those sort of ones that have these beautiful, really big affirmations that cover all bases. But for spell work, I like to have shorter ones that kind of get straight to the point. They're still in the positive, but they're very much to the point as to what I want to affirm, so that I can kind of say it over and over again while I'm doing any charging, anything that's connected to the spell on that level. I find doing those three things is really helpful when we're doing any charging of our items. And talking about charging, that is really something you want to do. Effective spell work requires that we really put energy into every layer, every aspect of our spell. So we really want to, if you've got a candle spell, you want to charge your candle, you want to charge the crystal if you're using crystals, you want to charge your herbs, you want to charge every one of those tools that you're going to utilize in your spell. So like I said, when we're charging, you want to tend to put it between your hands. So if you've got a candle, pop that between your hands, or a crystal, charge each item individually. Don't try and charge everything all at once. Try and, hold everything. Just charge them individually, but take a good few minutes for each item and really affirm, repeat it over and over again. Really see it as best as you can. If you're not really visual, don't stress. Then really lean on the feeling it and the affirming it. Use whichever ones of those that really resonates with you the most. I like to use all three, but you use whichever of those that really work. But I definitely recommend really feeling it and fueling all of those elements with what you're really feeling and seeing and affirming. So then we can actually do our spell. So, simple spells work, and I'm a big one for keep it simple. If you have seen any of the spells that I have shared on our Facebook pages, and I've got the online book of shadows on Mystical's website, I'm a big one at keep it simple because I find that works really well. For me, if it's too complicated, I find it starts to lose some of the energy, only because I'm trying to think about too many aspects of the spell and making sure I don't miss anything, or, all of those elements to it. So I find that keeping it simple is really powerful all by itself. So I always keep it simple. I love my little candle magic and adding crystals and just little things, but not getting too complicated when it comes to the actual spell itself. So whatever kind of spell work you like to use, whatever kind of magical work that you like to use, do that spell. It will all work really effectively using these things that I've talked about. But then it comes to that point when we've done the spell and it's all finished, and we actually need to let it go. And this is often one of the hardest things for people to do as part of that spell, is to let it go, because we often feel that emotional connection to it. We feel that emotional attachment to whatever it is that we're asking the universe for, that we find it's really hard to let it go, to stop thinking about it, and to know that by doing that spell, we've handed that on to the universe, and we're asking universe to take care of it now. So now we need to stop obsessing about it. We need to stop thinking about it and referring back to it and doing all of those sorts of things, and just simply let it go so universe can kind of take care of things for us. So that can be really hard. It's I don't like to do spells that go over like 7 days or consistently needing to redo that spell, because that keeps reconnecting us back to that energy instead of really letting it go. And it's not a good idea to start talking about your spell to everybody and telling everybody how you've just done this spell. It's not a good idea to do all of those things, because it actually doesn't assist you in being able to let it go and allow universe to kind of take care of it. I often talk about how, if we have written a letter and we take it to the postman and we want him to post it and get it to where it needs to go, we have to let that letter go. We have to hand it on to the postman and let it go. And so it's the same with our spell. If we want it to get where it needs to go and to be able to collect the energy that it needs, then we have to, let it go so that it can come back to us with whatever it is that we've asked for. So that can be hard, because it's also that trust aspect to letting it go as well. So, and I think that's part of, what the traditional witches talk about. Keep it secret. It's once we do magic, it is about letting it go and allowing it to do its thing. But we still have to be open to opportunities as well. We have to be open to often money. The money is the topic that gets talked about the most, so that's why I refer back to it a little bit, but it's an easy example as well. So we often get caught up in, I really want money, I really need the money, but we don't necessarily accept all of the opportunities that come in to be able to allow universe to work with us and start to bring the money flow in. So what I mean by that is, once we do a spell, it's not like, oh, because I've asked for money, I'm going to win the lotto. Otherwise, there'd be lots of us that have won the lotto. And I suppose we'd all be sharing lotto winnings. But it doesn't tend to be how the universe works. Rather, it will bring opportunities in to allow us to kind of, get the money. So it might be in bits and pieces rather than in all one lump sum. It could be that the phone starts ringing and you get offered extra shifts at work. It could be that you find some money in the car park that you weren't expecting, or that you suddenly make a savings or a number of savings, get discounts where you weren't expecting them, and you're expecting to pay more money out. There could be lots of ways that universe starts to bring that money in for you, but we tend to have the blinkers on a little bit. Once we've done the money spell, we just kind of expect that somehow it's going to land in our lap like a big, lot of money that's just going to come from the sky. But it usually doesn't work that way. Sometimes it comes in a really unexpected way, and sometimes it might be it comes, there's a lotto winning or some other big winning like that. But sometimes it might be that a relative actually passes away and an inheritance comes in, or there's so many different ways that it can come. So while we need to let it go, we also just have to be open, have our blinkers off, so that we can see when opportunities come and actually be able to acknowledge and go, oh yes, thank you, universe, as those little opportunities start to roll in. Exactly, Tristan. Small windfalls just start coming in, and that's often how it works, not so much in those big lump sums. I will never forget when I used to run my Finding the Witch Within course, which was 13 weeks. We did a week by week, and we would break up at Christmas or just before Christmas, and we would come back in the new year and do a couple of extra weeks. And we would always do an abundance spell, because, leading up to Christmas, all the bills come in and we can all use extra money. And I didn't know at the time that one of my students had a very specific amount of money that she needed, and she was really short, and it was like $600 and something dollars and so many cents. And she knew it off the top of her head what her budget was short. And so that's what she charged the candle with. And we did it as a group spell. We all put our intent in on what we could use. And then when we came back, it was like sharing what we'd experienced, what money had come in throughout Christmas, and had you seen extra funds come in. And she had a list of exactly all the things that added up to her exact amount that she'd asked the universe for when she did the spell. But it was a list. It wasn't like, here's that exact amount of money, But that list of things added up to the cent to exactly how much she'd charged the candle and asked universe for. It was amazing, and it really just really proved to me how that's how the universe tends to be. And if we really strongly feel about it, universe will bring in the opportunities. It'll bring in the ways. We've got to kind of trust and say yes and accept opportunities. Not to say we have to accept every opportunity, because I know, sometimes when we're doing a money spell, for instance, it's like, I'm already working all the hours I really can do. I really couldn't do any more hours at work, for instance, for overtime. And that's fine. So if work starts to ask you to do more hours, um, then it's a bit hard to do that. But you don't, like I say, you don't have to take every opportunity. If you have to say no to certain ones, that's fine, but don't say no to all of them. We've got to acknowledge what comes in and say thank you to universe as they're coming in, because I find if we don't, then it will start to block your spell. So if you keep saying no, or you just kind of got the blinkers on and you're oblivious and not even realizing and acknowledging the little windfalls that are coming in, the little opportunities that are coming in, the flow tends to stop and you can tend to start to block that spell for yourself. And the other thing that's worth mentioning as well, in relation to things like blocks with spells, is when we do a spell, universe, it starts to work with us, like I've said, but it can start to go, oh, okay, well, yes, we can help you with this spell. That's no problem. We can help you in manifesting that. The thing that's actually your biggest block at the moment is your self-confidence or your self-love, for instance. These are two big ones. So then universe will actually start bringing you opportunities to chip away at that self-confidence, to chip away at that self-love, to turn that around so it's no longer blocking you from whatever it is that you're asking for. So this is why sometimes when we do a spell, we feel like, oh my God, what's happened? It's like, bricks have just fallen on top of me. I don't know what universe is doing. That's nothing like what I asked for. But it's only because, well, maybe your block is that self-love. You don't necessarily love yourself, and you don't necessarily feel that you deserve whatever you're asking for. So universe will start to bring you in healing opportunities to heal that and to build up your self-love or your self-confidence, so that you can actually allow those things in and it's not a block anymore. So that's a really big one to realize and acknowledge as well, so that you can start to kind of work more with that. So I find if we have the blinkers off and we're more open to universe, then that tends to help. You'll start to kind of see that, and you might have those epiphanies, those realizations along the journey. Yeah, Tessa, I'm not surprised. Lots of people have a big one. Their big one as well is about whether I deserve it. It's been one for me as well, and blocking things too. I find lots of people don't believe in themselves enough. So, when you do your spell work, you might find that's something that gets activated. And that's not to scare you off. That's just to make you guys aware that if that sort of thing starts to happen, it's working with that energy and working with the healing, maybe even starting to focus on those healing aspects for yourself, because you might be aware that's going to be something that comes up. And that will actually assist your spell to be able to be manifested, rather than blocking it because you suddenly start going, oh, it's all too much, and you run and hide instead of working with that energy, that's being provided. Yeah, it's not always what you think. It's not always what you ask for, is it, Kim? So yeah, those are some of the real things to really consider when it comes to more effective spell work. I also like to mention to people about, it doesn't hurt to have a bit of a plan of action in mind as well in relation to spells. As in, classic example is whenever I have done manifesting for like renting a property or buying a property even, I always have my list of dot points of the things that I want that's in my home. So I try and be really specific for that spell work, for my focus. But I also tend to have a bit of a plan of action, as in, that physical plan of action of, okay, well, I need to go visit real estate agents and see what's available, and, all those kind of logical action type things that are involved. It's not just about once I've done a spell, I sit on my butt at home and universe is just going to bring the opportunities in through my front door. It's a bit hard for universe to bring the real estate agent in and those sorts of things. So it's like have a bit of a plan of action as well as to the actual action plan that you're going to do. And while you're doing that, you know what, like I say, have the blinkers off and be open to opportunities, because that's when universe can more easily bring in some of those opportunities. And you might find, oh, while I'm visiting all the real estate agents, I just get this gut call to go to this specific one first. And then as I go in there, it's like this particular house has just gone on the market or has just been made available. And oh, look at that. It happens to be perfect. There's all these things that can happen, but we have to be open to it and we have to actually get out and start to do some of those physical things as well, not just sit back expecting everything to just kind of land in your lap. We still have to, operate in this physical environment as well. So it can be good to have a little bit of a physical plan of action. I'm not saying have all the goals, every single little step outlined as to how to get from A to Z. You don't have to have that, but certainly have a bit of a plan of what are some of the physical action things that I can do to already start to build some momentum towards that goal that I'm asking for. And then that provides universe with more ways to start to work with you, in that manifesting. So, if you're doing a healing spell, you might, as part of that plan, perhaps, have booked into a counselor, for instance, to have a few sessions with somebody or some other kind of spiritual healer to kind of kickstart that, and get advice as to what's going to be the next step, and do those sorts of things. Have that physical kind of a couple of ideas of things you can do to kind of help heading for that goal, heading in that direction. The other thing that I said that I was going to mention tonight is also how long does it take for my spell to manifest? As long as it needs to take is the real answer when it comes to that. I have read of occasionally some people like to publish that it's going to be within a moon cycle, and things like that, but honestly I really find some spells you will do and there'll be so much energy and momentum and it's like everything is lined up. It's like that domino effect, and you doing that spell just gives it this big oomph, and it's like bang bang bang, wow, it's like manifested within days. And I've done spells that have been manifested within hours, and other spells that have really taken their time. And maybe that's because, there's been a few things for me. It's been, there's been things that have been triggered that I needed to heal. And they weren't small things. And I wasn't always really ready to do that healing at the time. So it's taken longer to manifest those things. Or maybe it's just taken longer for the universe to line everything up really beautifully in order for you to manifest or get whatever it is that you're looking to get from your spell. So please know that there is no hard and fast, this is how long it takes. It really is. It really can be really quick. I have manifested my own home within 6 months, and that was myself and my partner at the time. We were both, I was much younger then, and we were both working casually, and I just got a fire in my butt that I really wanted my own home. We were renting, and the side fence fell down, and I had 2 little dogs, and the side fence was through to a park, a local park, and our landlord wasn't about to fix it, had no intention of fixing the fence, and it was just causing more and more issues, and I really got a fire under my butt, and I was like, I'm manifesting a house. I want it now. I want my own home so I could fix things like that myself. And I did. Within 6 months, we had built our own home. So when you really have that emotional connection to something, you really want it, and it's like things start to line up and you grab opportunities and you work hard, you can make it happen. You honestly can. So I did a fair bit of manifesting in that, as well as physical action to make that happen. So, but often when we talk about, I want to manifest a house, a lot of people have this concept that it's going to take a couple of years maybe to be able to manifest like that, especially if you were casually employed and, there's so many things to shift. But, universe can really work with us and make things happen a lot faster than our perception might be, as long as we can be open and trust in universe and really work with universe, and jump on the opportunities that come as they come. Because I can tell you, I jumped on every opportunity back then to make that happen. And then for my second home, I didn't have the same fire under my butt. My first husband got that first home, and I have a home now which I just got last year, but it took longer for me to manifest because I didn't have the same fire under me, until other things happened, and then I manifested it within a couple of months. So, obviously things for me, when I really have a fire under my butt, I can make things happen, but when I don't, it doesn't necessarily happen as fast, which I'm sure is the same for all of us, you know. And that's part of where universe has really proven to me that emotional connection really helps to fuel your spells. So please know that that emotional connection can be really important to your spell work, and charge everything up with that emotional connection, with how you feel about it. Oh, sorry, guys. So having said all of that, I hope that's all been making sense. And I've loved the little extra comments as well, guys. Thank you. Does anyone have any questions that you want to ask on spells or any of that kind of thing, or anything that I've maybe mentioned tonight? I have a feeling that my internet is very slow tonight. Yes, Nikki. So with home manifesting, can you use a vision board with it? Yes, definitely. Um, for me, I just use dot points. And that was the way that I found was worked the best. But definitely, you could use a vision board with the same kind of thing. I always find that it's the things that I miss off my dot points that I don't get, and I'm spewing about later. So try and be really thorough with what you put into it. But definitely, vision boards for other things I've found to be really, really good. So definitely, vision boards help work really well. You're welcome, Jude. I'm glad that you find the spells really helpful. Oh, I'm glad you're inspired with your manifesting too. When I speak of short intentions, what sort of wording are you suggesting? Just, I suppose one of my classic affirmations, which isn't for any particular spell, is I accept miracles into my life. That's just one that I like to use regularly, for literally for anything. So just short affirmations like that is kind of perfect for the spell work, for your affirmations in your spell work. So you just more want a sentence that's kind of to the point in what you want. And like I said, in the positive as well, of course. Oh, that's really great, Beth. I'm really glad that you found it, or Naomi, sorry, found it really helpful. It depends where you're feeling like you need to begin, though. So whatever is going on in your life that you're like, I'd really like to work on this, is going to be, probably the best thing to start with. I find candle magic is really great, which is why a lot of my spells have a candle in it. But I've got the Book of Shadows that's on Mystical's website under resources, if you want to have a look in there to see if there's any inspiration once you've thought about, what feels relevant for you. What moon phase is best for selling something? For selling something, that's about letting go. So when it comes to moon phases and tying it into your spell work, the full moon's good for everything. So that's why it tends to get talked about the most. It will amplify whatever you're putting out there. So it would certainly work as well. But the waning moon, which is the time after the full moon going right down through to our dark moon or new moon, that's a really good time for that releasement and letting go. So that would be the ideal time for selling something because it's about releasing. And then the new moon, which is when we've just got that very tiny bit of the moon in the sky, is really great for new beginnings, in particular, things that we want to bring into our life. And then the waxing moon, which is from that new moon energy right through to the full moon, that's the time to really be building things in our life and growing things in our life. So, that's the perfect time to do that. So I hope that helps. Yes, you can certainly do spells to help you win the lotto, Kirsten. But like I said, I find that if you actually do a spell that is more focused on what you want to use the money for, you'll probably find you get better results rather than I want to win the lotto. It'll just be more emotionally charged for you. You're welcome. You're welcome, ladies. Yes, Sandra, absolutely. If you haven't got the appropriate coloured candle, for any spell you come across, the white candle is like the ideal substitute. It is good for everything. So that is what I call your ideal substitute for any other candle color. So if you ever come across a spell that that says a specific color candle that you don't have, certainly white candle is ideal to swap it over for. Okay. Thanks, Lisa. So Lisa's a new seeker and says that a lot of books talk about the ceremony of casting spells with the quarters and such. Um, I don't do that. So for me, that when we call corners and cast circle, that is casting circle, and that's connected with ritual. And we can certainly do spells as part of ritual, but I don't do ritual as part with all of my spells. So certainly keep it simple. You don't need to cast circle and call all the corners and do as elaborate as that. So keep it simple, sweetie. Just focus on the spell itself. You honestly, some people believe that it creates extra protection, which it certainly does, and it'll help hold the energy for you so that when you are at that time when you're really focusing and wanting to manifest and send out to the universe, that it's going to hold all the energy until that point. But I wouldn't stress it. I've never found that I don't have effective spells just because I don't cast circles. So that's a really good question. I have seen that quite a bit where people say, cast circle, call the corners, call in divinity, and then do your spell. So don't feel that you need to, my darling. Just do the spell itself. Keep it much simpler than that. You're welcome, Robbie. Yeah, candle magic is good. I love candle magic. It's so simple and so effective as well. We can do such good candle magic just with a candle, and charging that candle up with our intent. We don't need all the other tools. Like I say, we're that really powerful and really important tool.